leading up to Tisha B'Av, we have very specific tefillot, and we have a few things that we're saying. So we have Slichot and we have Kinot. Slichot we say a few times a year. We say them around fasts. Okay, so around most fasts we're going to say Slichot, and we focus on it repeating itself around Hashem, Hashem El Rachum V'Chanun, right? The 13 of Hashem's attributes. It repeats it over and over and over again throughout the Slichot. We say it around fast days. We also say it between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, leading up to Rosh Hashanah. And we also have another thing that some people are familiar with, called Ta'aniyot Bahab, which are specific times of the year where people fast Mondays and Thursdays. Not everybody, specific people fast those extra days, and then you have extra Slichot. The purpose of Slichot is saying I'm sorry, right? It's that repetition of apologizing, and the original apology or begging for an apology, begging for forgiveness is Moshe falling on his face and saying, Hashem, Hashem El Rachum V'Chanun, Hashem, forgive the nation, right? And don't destroy the nation, forgive the nation, and therefore we'll be able to move on because of your forgiveness. Hashem, Hashem El Rachum V'Chanun, going through the Yud Gimel Midot. So that is Slichot. Tisha B'Av has something else, okay, and it's not in the Siddur, so we're not going to be going through the Siddur with it. You're no longer allowed to eat, okay, and about 15 minutes after Shabbat ends, everybody's going to be coming, all the communities, what they do is everybody comes together to read Eicha. You do it 15 minutes afterwards so people can drive, and then people do Arvit, Arvit, change their shoes off of leather shoes, because you're not allowed to start doing anything of Avelut before the fast officially begins, and while it's Shabbat. And then from there, we read Eicha. Eicha is filled with mourning and sadness. Then we read like 1 or 2 Kinot, and that's going to be the main focus of tonight. And then on Sunday, there's Tefillah. We don't put on Tefillin, okay, because it's a fast day. We're sitting on the floor, and all of the halachot and customs of Tisha B'Av. And then afterwards, we start saying Kinot. When we finished technically the part of the davening, that's when we start saying Kinot. And these Kinot go on. You can read them throughout the whole day. We have famous Kinot. We have Kinot that people are less familiar with, okay? Some older ones, some newer ones. Examples of Kinot are Kinot like Alei Tzion. That's a pretty common one that people are familiar with. It has a nice tune to it. Alei Tzion ve'area, which goes according to the alphabet. You have ones of Betzeitim Yerushalayim, or Betzeitim Mitzrayim and Betzeitim Yerushalayim, which puts in comparison the joy of leaving Egypt, of the redemption, of the Geulah, and on the other side, the sadness of leaving Yerushalayim. And it just keeps on going, every single one. How happy I was when I left Mitzrayim, how devastated we were when we left Yerushalayim, right? So there's like something that very poetic that's being trying to tell us. And the last house over there, the last paragraph is how joyful we'll be when we come back to Yerushalayim. We have ones about the Asareh Harugei Malchut, the 10 biggest rabbis of the generation that the Romans executed them in unimaginable ways, right? And the more you go through them, you read what the poet is trying to tell you, right? So most of the Kinot are written by about 4 or 5 people over the generations, and the ones that we know. There's also ones that says like unknown, no one knows who wrote it. But for the most part, the ones that are known are about five people from different generations. What made them write these different kinot? Expulsion of Jews from Spain and Inquisition, pogroms, right? Like things that were major. And there's one called Eli Eli that was read right after the Holocaust, right? And each one of them, I'm sure when the generation was reading them, it was extremely difficult because they understood very much what was going on. Over time, we kind of lost it, but the general idea of the Kinot is the Kinot are supposed to put us in a mindset of the sadness that we have left Israel, that we're in exile, that even though we've come back, Hashem is still in exile, that we don't have a temple, that we're suffering. All of these things, all of this sorrow gets packed in to the Kinot. And up until last year, I virtually did not read Kinot. I would sit there and I'd get bored and I'd leave, right? Because I don't have a great attention span, and sitting there trying to listen to Kinot that I didn't understand was very hard for me. After the war started, a friend of mine, Nachum Goldstein, wrote a Kinot, which was horrible, right? We're in a generation that someone felt the need to actually write one of these terribly sad songs. I have listened to it easily a few hundred times because it is so powerful, and he wrote, so I have it in front of me, but he wrote he writes the whole kina, and at the bottom he writes where it connects to. And if you look actually through kinot, most kinot are written like this. They say they start. So this one, for example, just here. B'shabbat tzur b'ni shimoni hochrai v'timale haaretz chamas v'higdilu oivai. So the first line, B'shabbat tzur b'meni shimoni hochrai, comes from a different piyut, from a different kina of Shabbat tzur b'meni, by Rav Eliezer Heckler, who was one of the first people who wrote a piyut, a kina, for Tisha B'Av, right? So he starts out with this. Why does he start with this? What does it mean? B'Shabbat suru b'meni. On Shabbat, stay away from me, my enemies, because the war started on Shabbat. V'timale haaretz chamas, the country filled with chaos, but also Hamas as the terrorist group, right? And that is from Bereshit. V'higdilu oivai, and they have come and were more than I was, right? They came and my enemies surrounded me. This is from Eicha, right? So he goes through it, and line by line, line by line, he goes through how it connects to the story, to Eicha, to the suffering, to the different kinot. And when you read it, so I'm going to read through it, and that's going to be our focus. I think tonight's going to be a little bit short because I don't want to be talking about kinot too much as to end the class, but I want that I'll read through it and I'll translate it as we're going through, and this is the purpose of the kinot. So, B'Shabbat suru b'meni shim'uni ochrai v'timale haaretz chamas v'higdilu oivai. Okay, so this continues. It says ve'avor ve'ereh ve'anochi mitboses b'damai, and this we say this at a brit. This is from Yechezkel, right? We say va'arech mitboseset b'damaich va'omar lach b'damaich chayim. And I pass over you and I see you so like drenched in your own blood. And I say, with your blood, there's life that comes, right? There's blood in birth. This is what Yechezkel is saying when he's looking at the atrocities and terrible things that are happening. And he says that I pass over you, and I see that you are drenched in blood, and what comes out of that blood? The baby comes out of it, right? So over here, we're in a terrible, terrible place, right? And we're being slaughtered. So he doesn't finish the sentence. He continues. He finishes. This is like the end of that passage, right? We're not there yet. We're not at that happy place yet of v'omar lach b'damaychem. Atzeret tiyeh lachem, kasha alay predatchem. Atzeret is the Chag of Shmini Atzeret, Simchat Torah, where it happened. Chag HaAtzeret. Atzeret also means to stop. Kasha alay predatchem is what is the purpose of Shmini Atzeret? Rashi says it's there to have an extra day that we celebrate with Hashem, because it's hard for Hashem that we're leaving, right? So Atzeret tiyeh lachem, kasha alay predatchem. Rachku ish mire'eu v'gadla me'ahava sinah. People were getting further away one from another, and they were willing. And hate grew more than love. This is from Shmuel. Halot Tzion b'mishpat tipadeh v'shaveh b'tzdaka. How will Tzion be redeemed? Okay, through judgment, and it will be through tzedakah, through charity will be brought. Ilu yatsa leman damo karatya, v'ilu yatsu leman meloch melucha al memshala. Lulaven miyadeh, here I'm skipping this one. This talks about Sukkot. Chevel eshkol, because he made this into a song afterwards, so not all of it made it in. But Chevel eshkol ofakim ushderot hayu lecherpa v'libizot. Right, so the areas that were attacked first, Chevel eshkol, the area of what's called eshkol, ofakim and shderot, they were pillaged and rampaged through. But now their sons and daughters are thrown in their streets. There isn't a survivor in the Simchat Torah. This is from a different. This whole thing was based off of a different kina of Zachor Brit Avraham. Okay, so like again, there's a connection over here, and I'm gonna sum it up in the end. Et mishabechim meleim ziv umfikim noga, at a time where people are praising, filled with their mouths are filled with the shine, with the ziv, with the wonder, umfikim noga, and they are radiating this light in the time of Simchat Torah. Hitasfu achenu v'rakedu banova. Our brothers gathered together to dance at the Nova, right? That was the festival where the terrorist attack started. Haskatego, you should shush the persecutor. Haomer lahu mamba v'zara mereim u'meshchitim hema. You shut up the persecutor who is saying, these are the people who are doing bad on the holiday. Banaihem af al pichen. They are my children regardless. Okay? Banaihem, they are my children regardless, even if they're off the path. Okay? And then he ends with, and 364 are carried away. Haskatego, Again, Shush the persecutor, Haomer, Mishol el bet hameri, et briti azvu al ken lohoshia b'nei be'eri. Shush the persecutor, who is saying, the people that have left my covenant in Be'eri, therefore I did not rescue them. Bein kach uvein kach, banaihem v'lahem yamer atem ami. Doesn't matter, even though they have left God's path, they've left God's covenant, they are still my children. Lo he'eminu malchei aretz. The kings of the land, this is from Eicha. V'toshavei hamedina, the kings of the land did not believe when they saw this, and the citizens of the land. Ki avot tzar ve'oyev b'sha'arei kefar azah, that a enemy can break through the walls and capture Kfar Aza. Tavchu banea chilelu b'noteha v'timeu admata. They slaughtered their sons. They disgraced our daughters, and they made tameh our land. V'yeshev mimena shevi, and they took hostages from there. V'chalalim hipila, and they've killed many. Shiv'im v'tisha, 79 of them. Atzeret tielachem kasha alai predatchem. The last one. Ba'u go'im b'nachlatecha. Here, I'll sing this one. Ba'u go'im b'nachlatecha, sarfu ashavu shivya, v'nivkad asher en koach livkot v'eino dim'a, re'eh cherpateinu, shma kol dmei acheinu, צועקים מן האדמה תרדוף באף ותשמידם ארדוף אויבי ואשיגם הפוך למחול אבלנו בשבת נסיס ליבנו עצרת תהיה לכם קשה עלינו פרידתנו באו גויים בנחלתך. There's enemies that came into your land. They burned it. They took from it hostages, and we've cried until there isn't any more energy to cry. We cried until there was no more tears. Watch from heaven and see how humiliated and embarrassed we are that our brother's blood is screaming from the land, right? Which is what Hashem tells Cain. Tirdof be'af v'tashmidem, go and chase them until they are destroyed. I will erdof oivai ve'asigem, I will chase my enemies and catch them. V'tashuv b'chalot hara'ah, and avenge the evil that they've done. Hafoch lemachol evleinu, turn our sorrow into a place of dance. Uv'shabbat nasis libenu, and on Shabbat our hearts will rejoice. Atzeret tieh lachem, kasha aleinu, it is hard for us. Predatenu, our separation. So this is the first time in years that I read something on Tisha B'Av that made me feel something, right? And after I read this, then I started to read the other ones. And you realize that every single one of these, so there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. There are 9 different paragraphs over here. And each paragraph is an atrocity that we are crying about till today, right? The hostages, the Be'eri, Aza, Kfar Aza, the Nova, each one of them is telling a different story, right? And each one of them, if they would have happened by themselves, would have been an atrocity that would be unforgivable. And they all happened together. And then you read the other Kinot, and you realize, first of all, we don't understand their language, right? It's hard because we don't understand what they're saying. We don't understand the pain that they were going through because we're not there. We weren't at that time. But when we're reading throughout history, and we read of the pogroms, and we hear of the Inquisitions, and we read of the Holocaust, and we read of all of these things that happened, we read about them kind of quickly. We go through them, and we say, yeah, over here, there's times were bad. What does it mean times are bad? In Alei Tzion, it says, I think it's Alei Tzion, it says, if a mother would be forced to eat her baby because she's starving, right? That's a horrible, horrible thing, right? But you read through it because we can't even comprehend what that would mean. What a level of starvation is, right? That it's, you'd rather kill your baby so that they're not suffering and that you have what to eat, right? You read through the Aseret Harugei Malchut, and you read that they take Rabbi Akiva and they peel his skin off with a peeler, right? Slowly, slowly, slowly until he dies. You read that they wrap one of the rabbis up with a Sefer Torah and they burn him alive, right? But they didn't want it just to burn the Torah and burn him. They wanted him to suffer. And it says they take cotton and they fill it with water and they put it by his heart so that his heart won't give out, right? Now, at that time, I'm sure that was the biggest atrocity that they could think of. And when they wrote it, everybody who read it cried because people saw it, people understood it, people remembered it. But we've been through so much that every generation just has its trauma that it's focusing on. And when you read through the Kinot, try to see it now that we can actually relate to a Kinot. So this is a very big thank you again to Nachum Goldstein. It's on YouTube. I'll attach a link to it on the description of the class. Okay, it's called B'Shabbat Sura Mimeni. I think there's another name for it on YouTube, but the Kina that he wrote, and it is extremely powerful. I'm trying to remember if he has translation in English, like subtitles in English, but it's a very, very powerful, right, thing to be able to read and relate. And thank God for a very long time we have not been able to relate. And this wake-up call of being able to relate should put us in the right mindset for this Tisha B'Av. God willing, Tisha B'Av one day will be a holiday, right? God willing, the fasts will become holidays. Just as Hanukkah used to be a fast and became a holiday, right? In the time before the miracle of Hanukkah and instituting it as a holiday, beforehand, people were mourning on those days, right? It was the days that the Bet HaMikdash was taken over by the Greeks. When we take it and we change it and we purify it, there's a switch. And that switch is so great that all the atrocities, do we remember the atrocities of the Greeks, right? There's little stories about them. But what do we tell as the story? We tell the story of the people who laid down their lives so that Hanukkah is a holiday, about the miracle of what Hanukkah is, right? And what will we tell future generations about this war has a lot to do with the outcome of the war, right? There's a lot of atrocities that happened in this war. A lot of terrible things that have happened to us. We've lost a lot of people. The first day of the war and throughout the war, we've lost a lot of people. But it depends how the war ends, how the story is told. The same thing with Bet HaMikdash. We've been through 2,000 years of exile, right? And every year, we sit down on the floor and we cry about it again, right? There's a few different ways of looking at it. leading into Tisha B'Av and a mindset that we can have now during the 3 weeks, right? This Shabbat is going to be Rosh Chodesh, right? Which means going into the 9 days, a more intensified version of the 3 weeks. Every generation that the Bet HaMikdash is not built in their generation, it's as if the Bet HaMikdash was destroyed in their generation. That is because the reason the Bet HaMikdash was destroyed is how we treat one another. And that has a massive impact on us. So we have an opportunity to change that. We have an opportunity to stop and fix everyone in their small circles and get bigger and bigger and bigger circles, ripple effect of how you can impact. But going into Tisha B'Av, unless Mashiach comes beforehand and we get to celebrate it as a holiday, and if we're fasting, this should be in our mindset of what are we doing wrong? What can we fix now that will make sure that next year we'll be celebrating in Yerushalayim as opposed to be fasting? Okay, with this we will finish the Kinot and finish for Tisha B'Av. And I think hopefully next week is going to be our last class. So I'm open for suggestions. The people who are listening online, you can write on the comments. People can write in suggestions for the last class that we're going to be doing from Nairobi on specifically on Tefillah. Laila Tov.